Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Welcome everybody back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. It's Adam Cousins here again. It's Monday, the worst day of the week, people. Mondays, don't just hate them. But never fear, I'm back with the Collision review. Yes, AEW Collision happened on Saturday or Sunday, if you're in the UK, here from the Intrust Bank Arena in Wichita, Texas. On tap for this episode, we had AR Fox and Swerve Strickland, the Acclaimed and Daddy Arse versus Dalton Castle and the Boys, Kip Sabian and the WorkHorsemen against Mark Briscoe and naturally Limitless, Willow Nightingale, Emi Sakura. We had Darby Allin and Lance Archer, and the main event was FTR, Roosh, Preston, Vance versus the Gates of Agony, Ricky Starks and Big Bill. The return of the cold opening. Finally, we had the interviews at the start of the show like we should normally have on Collision, and those had been missed, especially by yours truly. Anyway, we kick off, and as soon as we hit onto Collision, AR Fox and Swerve are fighting down the ramp. Now, remember, AR Fox was kicked out of the Mogul Embassy by Swerve Strickland after his loss, I think, to Darby Allin. I felt this match was good. It was a fun opener, quite quick-paced, really, for both of these. There was a nice twisting vertical suplex and a 450 splash by Fox at one point during this match. But in the end, the Swerve stomp finished the match. I just feel as if those two were capable of so much more in the ring. Perhaps time limit maybe they were short of time and they had to. I know it was the opening contest, but obviously with the big main event, perhaps that needed to have more time. So this one had to have a bit less. Hopefully, we get a bit more of this in the future. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see about that. After the match, the Gates of Agony and Swerve actually surrounded the ring, but FDR made the save. Big Bill was there as well, and LFI come out. They all basically cleared the ring, and then FTR went to shake hands with LFI, but LFI brushed him off and left the ring. We then go to Kip Sabian, and he's mad that Mark Briscoe attacked him in his wife's hometown last week. Sabian brings in the WorkHorsemen and said they're the most underrated tag team in AEW, and he wanted the Briscoe to find two partners to meet them tonight, which you know who they are, which we'll get into in a minute in more detail. The Kingdom were next against two unknowns, really, on this one. And it really wasn't that quick or that long of a match where, there was a spine buster by Bennett, a Shining Wizard by Tavern, a spinning back kick by Tavern, Death Valley Driver by Bennett, and a Spike Power Driver finishing the Kingdom win. Really was a nothing match. It's probably just to elevate the Kingdom a little bit. They have been heavily involved with Adam Cole and MJF and Roddy Strong. We haven't seen a lot of them, so perhaps this was just a kind of a reintroduction to the Kingdom, so to speak. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully, we'll get a bit more of them as the weeks and months progress on Collision and Dynamite, for that matter. Briscoe is talking to FTR at the back. FTR says, "Look, we'll go double duty today. We'll go in the main event and we'll team with you." But Mark Briscoe says you can't ask him to do that, and he's already got two other guys lined up. And again, we'll get to it. The next match, Darby Allin versus Lance Archer with Jake Roberts. Now, the big beef that I have here is that Lance Archer is so talented. He's so good. And we see him once and he'll disappear. He disappears more than what Wardlow has done. And maybe even Brian Cage until recently. And Brian Cage is another one that's got a lot of things going for him, just not been used. And the same here. Lance Archer come in when he was AEW, this big, he had kind of like a big push straight away, and then you never really saw him again. And this one with Darby Allin, I mean, there was a massive pounce by Archer early doors. He did try to do old school, funnily enough. Darby Allin crotched him with that one. There was a half stunner into a roll up halfway through this. There was a big released German suplex by Archer. Lastly, on this, there was a big avalanche code red off the top rope for the win for Darby Allin. But we keep seeing this way of Darby Allin going against a bigger guy, finding a way to win. Gets beat up a lot, but finds a way to win. But it's a shame that we don't see enough of Lance Archer. I really think there's something there. But however, after the match, Jake the Snake grabs the mic and says, "It's not the only way this is going to end." And he introduces more guys, being the Righteous. And Vincent says, "Revenge is forever, and it's showtime." And Archer lays Darby out with the blackout. And it seems as though Lance Archer is going to be with the Righteous and Jake Roberts. Now, that could be interesting because we could then see the Righteous, who we've seen little bits and pieces about as the last sort of month or two has gone on. And now we could have aligned them with Archer and Jake the Snake, and we could finally see yet another faction in AEW. And AEW is really faction heavy at the moment. So perhaps that's where they're going with it. And hopefully within that, we'll see a lot more of Lance Archer, the Righteous, the two very good tag team. There's two very good individuals as well as a tag team. And having them with Jake Roberts could really, hopefully, with the right booking, take them to the next level. So as we progress through to the end of the year, we'll see what happens with those two. Statlander was next. And she was at back with Lacey Nair. There was Lexi Nair. Sorry, there was Willow Nightingale, Sky Blue. Statlander did thank Sky for doing the right thing, but she said you didn't do anything for Statlander. She did it for Willow and just walked off. There, Swerve Strickland interrupts Alex Abraham's interview and subsequently, basically, accepts a match against Penta Alizella Miedo this week on Dynamite, which should be an absolute belter. The Acclaimed were next, celebrating their 69th day as trios tag team champions. Daddy Ass and Bowens have a gift for Caster. A video of MJF is showing, and MJF respects Caster, and while he doesn't love the Acclaimed, he at least likes them a little bit. And that brought out Dalton Castle and the boys, who grabbed the 69th trophy from the announce decks and smashed it. And that started a big brawl, which then put in the match between the Acclaimed and Dalton Castle and the boys. They tried to use the pinata, but Bowens clothesline to both. It was a silly match, and it didn't last very long. It was a really silly match. There was a little bit, as I said, they tried to use the pinatas, the big double clothesline. There was a tag to Daddy Arse, Sesame Timbers to Boy 1, Famous to Boy 2, the Arrival and Mike drop to finish it. It was a match. It happened. That was really it for that one. Andrade will give CJ Perry her answer next week. Now, for those of you that don't know, CJ Perry wants to align herself with people that need managers so she can create champions. Miro's not normally happy with this, but we'll see. But she did. Andrade, I think, was the first one other than Action Andretti to talk to CJ Perry. So that'll be an interesting one to see where that leads. Does that lead Andrade into a feud with Miro going forward? That could be a very interesting feud going forward. One I would really like to see. So we will see next week if Andrade accepts CJ Perry as his manager. Next we go was the Kip Sabian Workhorsemen versus Mark Briscoe and two partners of his choosing, which turned out to be Keith Lee and Dustin Rhodes. The big thing for me about this, and we have talked about this a lot on this channel, so Mark Briscoe, Dustin Rhodes, Keith Lee pick up the win on this. Basically hits the froggy bow finisher for the win. The big one on this is the Keith Lee and this stop-start. It's like a Wardlow thing. Keith Lee is not even got to the stage that Wardlow has got to. He is one of the biggest puzzles in wrestling. How can this guy, who is gifted, talented, he's a fridge, he's got power, he's got a bit of speed about him as well. Wherever he goes, there's nothing. There is nothing. He was pushed highly in NXT. He went to the main roster in WWE, and they just booked him like shit, to be quite honest with you. He was Bearcat Keith Lee. And you thought when he went to AEW, you thought, here we go, this is it. Nothing. And I'm really annoyed with it. Anyway, but what they're going to do with Keith Lee remains to be seen. The match was pretty entertaining. And it was always nice to see Briscoe back. And he has challenged, Mark Briscoe has challenged Jay White for Dynamite, I believe. And if he wins, he gets the title shot against MJF. So interesting to see where that goes. Does he accept it? If he does, could it be that Mark Briscoe now was going to go after MJF? So there's even more enemies for MJF, which is, as I said, and I've said this a lot across these few last few episodes of the AEW stuff, that it's great that they're doing that because you've champions at your forefront, and I really enjoy what they do there. Next was Emi Sakura, Willow Nightingale. Willow picks up the win on this with the powerbomb, and this was a big win for Willow. And again, the momentum now, we talked about how she keeps losing the bigger matches, and now she's starting to build some momentum again after a loss. She's now winning again. I just think with Willow Nightingale, although these two women actually work well together, it was actually a really good match. But with Willow, you get into that point, which we've kind of mentioned WWE with like an LA Knight. If you're going to do something with her, you need to do it. Otherwise, the credibility of her is going to go. And you look at the likes of the Keith Lees that we just mentioned, the Lance Archers, the Wardlows, the credibility of them because they've not been booked properly has already been shot to pieces. You're at that stage of Willow Nightingale now where you need to either pull the trigger, or keep her winning matches until she gets to the big one. And then when you're ready to pull the trigger, then you do it. But it's very difficult with her, and I'm not too sure where they go. Speaking of Keith Lee, Samoa Joe was backstage, and he hasn't heard back from MJF, and MJF will continue to endure the pain until he needs him. He's beaten everyone, as Joe said, he's beaten everyone that's put in front of him. And Keith Lee says he hasn't beaten everybody yet. And Joe's accepted that for Wednesday. Now, here's the thing. Keith Lee and Samoa Joe is going to be a meat slapper, which is what I like to call it. And it should be a really good match. Is this the point where we're talking trigger pulls, we're talking Keith Lee being sort of in the wilderness and nothing's really happened, the biggest puzzle in wrestling? Is Wednesday Dynamite the opportunity to put Keith Lee on the map? Hope so. But anyway, we move on to main event time. It was obviously LFI FTR, Gates of Agony, Rookie Starts, Big Bill. Great 8-man tag. Really strong main event. It didn't get too cluttered either. Everyone got a chance to kind of show what they do, but in my opinion, Roosh on this stole the show. LFI and FTR win it as well. Roosh hit the big rig. FTR hit the big rig, and then Balls Horned Khan from Roosh to finish off. Again, FTR looked for the handshake, and again they didn't do it. So, but that wasn't the end, because as LFI leave the ring again, the House of Black are here. The video is shown on the screen. And Black said they're the only ones that care about FDR, and if they don't believe them, they'll beat it into them. And the lights come on, and there's FTR, there's the House of Black, and they jump FDR. But Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta are there to make the save as Collision goes off the air. My opinion, a really strong episode of Collision, which is built up a bit further, some storylines. And there's FTR, there's House of Black, there's LFI, there's the Blackpool Combat Club. Lots of stuff going on, which makes it intriguing viewing for next week. And that is where we'll leave this episode of the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. We'll be back this week. We've got interviews galore. We've got reviews galore. Everything's going down this week. We are speaking to Joe Garley from the NWA. We are speaking to CJ Carter from Ignite ahead of their big show at the weekend. We're also speaking to Roman Reigns' cousin Lance Anoa'i. But for now, everybody, this has been the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast with me, your host, Adam Cousins. And until next time, everybody, buckle down and stay safe.